Streets of
Canal Street.
Louisiana, New Orleans. I'm gonna flip it. Look at this man.
I'm just here. I love nothing at all.
People are gonna call me crazier and wonder why I did what I did. Deception. Stop dealing in deception with people. When I met Ashley, I was openly polyamorous. I slept with women. I was upfront about it. I told her about my anger issues. I told her about my felony. I told her about prison. I told her about being controlling, violent, everything. I gave her every opportunity to walk away. I gave her every opportunity to be honest with me, but instead she chose to constantly deal in deception. And I'm tired of it, period.
What if we told you that someone committed a violent crime and then went online to explain why their victim deserved it? Not months later, not after getting caught, but immediately afterward, while police were still trying to figure out what happened. We're talking about someone who looked directly into a camera and calmly explained their actions, blamed their victim, and essentially handed law enforcement a full confession before anyone even knew they needed one. This actually happened, and what makes it even more disturbing is how it all started. It's 3:45 in the morning in a quiet Illinois neighborhood. A mother and her child wake up to a strange smell, gasoline, strong and unmistakable, coming from somewhere outside their home. Most people might ignore it, maybe assume a neighbor had car trouble, but this smell is too strong, too close. So the mother does what any responsible person would do. She takes her child outside to investigate. They step into the darkness together, trying to figure out where this gasoline smell is coming from. The air is thick with fumes, but they can't see the source. Then something happens. The child goes back inside the house. The mother doesn't. Now here's where this case gets unprecedented. While police are trying to piece together what happened to this missing woman, while her family is desperately searching for answers, while investigators are following standard procedures, someone decides to go public. But not to ask for help finding her, not to provide information, to justify why she supposedly had it coming. We've covered hundreds of cases, and we've never seen anything like this. Criminals usually try to hide their involvement, destroy evidence, create alibis. They don't typically grab a camera and explain their reasoning to the world. But that's exactly what happened here. This person didn't just commit a crime, they documented their twisted logic behind it. They claimed they'd been upfront about their violent nature from the beginning. They actually blamed their victim for what they themselves had done. And here's the part that will blow your mind. This wasn't their first time putting their criminal mindset on display. Years before this incident, they had actually written about their own violent tendencies, published it, and made it publicly available. So we're dealing with someone who documented their dangerous thinking, acted on it, and then went online to defend their actions. The level of self-incrimination is almost unbelievable. But why? Why would someone essentially prosecute themselves? Why broadcast your guilt when you could just stay quiet? What kind of mindset leads to this level of public justification for violence? Those are the questions that kept us digging into this case. Because this isn't just about what happened on that July morning when a woman disappeared after smelling gasoline outside her home. This is about understanding how someone can be so convinced of their own righteousness that they'll confess to the world. What we discovered next changed everything we thought we knew about this case. If you want to investigate alongside us here at Crime Vault Stories, hit subscribe and let's uncover the truth together. Because the psychology behind this public confession reveals something terrifying about how certain individuals justify violence. The gasoline smell was just the beginning. The online justification was what made this case unforgettable. When the sun rises on July 23rd, 2022, the Rockford Police Department receives a call that will launch one of the most unusual investigations they've ever handled. A woman has been reported missing under suspicious circumstances from the 300 block of Cole Avenue, not just missing, suspicious circumstances. That terminology tells us everything we need to know about how seriously law enforcement is taking this from minute one. The missing woman is 38-year-old Ashley Nicole Hardin, and what we're about to tell you about her life will make what happened to her even more heartbreaking. Ashley was born on April 8, 1984, in Sterling, Illinois. By all accounts, she was the kind of person who made everyone around her feel better just by being there. Her friends describe her as someone with an infectious energy, always smiling, always ready with an encouraging word when you needed it most. But more than anything else, Ashley was a mother. She had 3 children, Zion, Kaylin, and Levi Hamilton, and being their mom was the center of her entire world. Everything she did, every decision she made, revolved around those kids. Her family and friends consistently say that spending time with her children brought her the greatest joy in life. Ashley had a gift that not many people possess, a beautiful singing voice that could absolutely captivate anyone who heard it. She wasn't just someone who liked to sing, she was genuinely talented. She performed with musical groups called Committed and One Voice, and she even sang backup for various artists. Music wasn't just a hobby for Ashley, it was part of who she was. Her best friend, Kyla, would later describe Ashley's incredible ability to lift people's spirits. According to Kyla, Ashley could make you laugh, she'll make you smile, she will make those tears go away, even if she's just cracking jokes. That's the kind of friend everyone wishes they had, someone who could turn your worst day around just by being herself. Professionally, Ashley worked as a receptionist at Mercy Health, where she'd been employed for 5 years. Her co-workers knew her for the same qualities her friends did: kindness, encouragement, and that genuine warmth that made people feel valued. Even in a work environment, Ashley's personality shone through. When she wasn't working or spending time with her children, Ashley loved to bake. It was another way she showed care for the people in her life, creating something delicious to share with family and friends. Between her singing, her baking, and her nurturing spirit, Ashley embodied creativity and love in everything she touched. She came from a large, loving family. Her parents, David and Kimberly Hardin, had raised 6 children together: Ashley and her siblings Melissa, Joshua, Tiffany, Nathaniel, and Lindsay. The family bonds were strong, and Ashley was deeply connected to all of them. Now here's something important that we need to understand about Ashley's story. She had navigated some difficult relationships in the past. Kyla, her best friend, later mentioned that there was a challenging relationship that had actually pulled them apart for about 3 years. They hadn't even spoken during that time. But Ashley had worked to rebuild her life. She was focused on her children, her career, her music, and the positive relationships that truly mattered to her. She had created stability and happiness for herself and her kids. This wasn't someone living in chaos or crisis. This was a woman who had built a good life centered around the people and activities she loved most. So when Ashley disappears from her home in the early morning hours, leaving behind those 3 children she adored, her job at Mercy Health where she was valued, and all the people who depended on her bright spirit, law enforcement knows immediately that something is very wrong. The search begins urgently. Multiple agencies start coordinating efforts because everyone involved understands that time is critical in cases like this. Ashley isn't someone who would just walk away from her life, especially not from her children. As the morning hours tick by, investigators are working frantically to piece together what could have happened to this beloved mother, daughter, and friend. They have no idea that the person responsible is about to make their job both easier and more disturbing than they could have ever imagined. At 7:30 a.m., less than 4 hours after Ashley Hardin was reported missing, everything changes. A body is discovered behind a business in the 5100 block of East Rockton Road in Roscoe, Illinois. This isn't Rockford where Ashley disappeared from. This is a neighboring community, which immediately tells investigators they're dealing with someone who transported their victim. The location is significant, behind the Ecolab Inc. facility, an industrial area that most people wouldn't just stumble upon by accident. Whoever left Ashley here knew this location, had planned this out, and understood it would provide temporary concealment. The Roscoe Police Department responds immediately to the scene. When officers arrive, they realize this isn't just a death, this is a homicide. Ashley has been shot. Now here's where the efficiency of law enforcement coordination becomes crucial. The Roscoe Police Department immediately contacts the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department for assistance. They understand that this case is going to require resources beyond what their department can handle alone. But something remarkable happens in these early hours of the investigation. Because Ashley had been reported missing under suspicious circumstances just hours earlier, police are able to make the connection incredibly quickly. They don't have to wonder about the victim's identity for days or weeks. They know exactly who they're looking at, and they know that someone wanted her to disappear. The timeline is staggering when you really break it down. We're talking about roughly 3.5 hours between a missing person report and the discovery of a homicide victim. That's virtually unprecedented in cases like this. Usually there are days or even weeks between when someone goes missing and when a body is found. This rapid discovery tells investigators several important things. First, whoever did this didn't take Ashley far from where she was abducted. Second, this wasn't a prolonged situation, this was quick and violent. Third, the perpetrator wasn't trying to permanently hide the body, they just needed enough time to do whatever else they had planned. The multi-agency response kicks into high gear. The Rockford Police Department, where Ashley was reported missing, the Roscoe Police Department, where her body was found, and the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department all begin working together. In cases like this, jurisdiction lines disappear because everyone understands that time is absolutely critical. Investigators start processing the scene behind the Ecolab facility while simultaneously working backward to Ashley's last known location. They need to understand how she got from Cole Avenue in Rockford to East Rockton Road in Roscoe, and they need to figure it out fast. The fact that Ashley's disappearance was reported as suspicious circumstances means that someone, whether it was family, friends, or neighbors, immediately understood that her absence wasn't normal. This wasn't a case where people waited the typical 24 hours to report someone missing. Someone knew right away that Ashley wouldn't just vanish, especially not while leaving her 3 children behind. Now investigators have a crime scene, a timeline, and a victim whose life they're already familiar with from the missing person report. What they need is a suspect, and unfortunately for law enforcement, that's usually the hardest part of any investigation. Except not this time. Because while police are methodically processing evidence, conducting interviews, and following standard investigative procedures, something extraordinary is about to happen. The person responsible for Ashley's death is about to take an action that virtually no criminal has ever taken in the history of law enforcement. We've seen criminals make mistakes, we've seen them leave evidence behind, get caught in lies, or eventually confess under pressure. But what happens next in this case is completely different. The perpetrator doesn't wait to get caught. They don't try to establish an alibi or destroy evidence. Instead, they decide to go public with their own version of events while investigators are still processing Ashley's crime scene. What happened in those missing hours seemed impossible to solve until the killer did something that stunned everyone involved. Stay with us as we reveal the twist that changed everything. Because what Ashley's killer chose to do next would transform this investigation from a standard homicide case into something that experienced detectives had never encountered before. The level of self-incrimination we're about to describe isn't just unusual, it's practically unheard of. While investigators are still processing Ashley's crime scene, still gathering evidence, still conducting their initial interviews, a 46-year-old man named Rayshawn Smith makes a decision that will go down in criminal justice history. Smith is Ashley's ex-boyfriend, and he's already on law enforcement's radar as a person of interest. That's standard procedure in cases like this. Police always look closely at current and former romantic partners when someone goes missing under suspicious circumstances. But instead of laying low, instead of getting a lawyer, instead of staying quiet like virtually every suspect in criminal history has done, Rayshawn Smith does something that leaves seasoned investigators absolutely speechless. He records a Facebook video. Not a video asking for help finding Ashley. Not a video expressing concern or offering support to her family. This is a video where Smith looks directly into the camera and explains why Ashley Hardin supposedly deserved what happened to her. Let that sink in for a moment. While police are still trying to build a case against him, while they're still gathering evidence and interviewing witnesses, Smith decides to create a permanent digital record of his guilt and post it online for the world to see. In this video, Smith calmly blames Ashley and others for what he himself had done. He doesn't show remorse, doesn't express regret, doesn't ask for forgiveness. Instead, he presents his actions as justified, as if Ashley somehow brought this violence upon herself. But here's where it gets even more disturbing. In this same video, Smith admits that he had been upfront about his violent criminal background when their relationship first began. He's essentially saying that he warned Ashley about his capacity for violence, and therefore what happened to her was somehow predictable or even her fault for staying involved with him. Think about the psychology behind this admission. Most people who commit violent crimes try to minimize their actions, claim it was out of character, or argue that circumstances forced their hand. Smith is doing the exact opposite. He's claiming ownership of his violent nature and using it to justify his actions. Now here's something that makes this case even more extraordinary. This Facebook confession wasn't Smith's first time documenting his criminal mindset for public consumption. In 2019, 3 years before Ashley's murder, Rayshawn Smith had published a memoir titled Sociopath or Wrong Path, Memoir of a Teenage Drug Dealer. This wasn't just some private journal, this was a published book that he made available to the public. In describing why he wrote this memoir, Smith stated that he created it as a journal for my sons to read in case anything ever happened to me while I was here, Eston in prison. Think about what that statement reveals. Smith was already anticipating future incarceration when he wrote this book. He was already planning for a scenario where he might be separated from his children due to criminal activity. This memoir gives us insight into how Smith viewed himself and his place in the world. The title alone, questioning whether he's a sociopath or just someone who took the wrong path, suggests someone who was aware of his antisocial tendencies but wasn't necessarily committed to changing them. So we have someone who wrote about their criminal thinking in 2019, admitted to having a violent criminal background, and then in 2022 created a video confession explaining why their victim deserved to die. This level of self-documentation is virtually unprecedented in criminal cases. What investigators are dealing with isn't just a confession, it's a philosophical justification for murder delivered directly from the perpetrator himself. Smith isn't denying his involvement, he's defending it. He's not claiming innocence, he's claiming righteousness. For law enforcement, this creates an almost surreal situation. Usually, getting a suspect to confess requires hours of interrogation, careful psychological pressure, and skilled detective work. Sometimes confessions never come at all, and cases are built entirely on physical evidence and witness testimony. But Smith handed them a full confession before they even asked for one. More than that, he provided insight into his motivations, his lack of remorse, and his twisted logic about why Ashley supposedly deserved to die. The Facebook video becomes a prosecutor's dream and a defense attorney's nightmare. How do you defend someone who has already explained their guilt to the world? How do you argue for leniency when your client has publicly stated that their victim deserved what happened to them? This isn't just a confession, it's a window into a mindset that most people can't even comprehend. We're looking at someone who was so convinced of their own righteousness that they felt comfortable broadcasting their justification for taking another person's life. The investigation, which could have taken months to solve, essentially solved itself the moment Smith decided to go public with his twisted reasoning. His need to be understood, to be validated, to have his perspective heard, ultimately became the very thing that ensured his conviction. With Smith's Facebook confession essentially serving as a signed confession, law enforcement moves with lightning speed. On the same day, Ashley's body was discovered, July 23, 2022. Rayshawn Smith is located and arrested in the 300 block of North Main Street in Rockford. We're talking about an arrest that happens before 11 a.m., meaning investigators went from crime scene to confession video to arrest in a matter of hours. This has to be one of the fastest major case resolutions in recent criminal justice history. Most homicide investigations take weeks or months to develop enough evidence for an arrest. Smith's decision to record his justification video compressed what should have been a lengthy investigation into a single morning. The Winnebago County State's Attorney's Office reviews the evidence, which at this point includes not just physical evidence from the crime scene but Smith's own recorded admission of guilt. They authorize severe charges: first-degree murder, aggravated kidnapping, and aggravated unlawful restraint. Smith is held in the Winnebago County Jail on a $2 million bond, which in practical terms means he's not going anywhere. Between the physical evidence, the Facebook video, and the circumstances of Ashley's disappearance and murder, prosecutors have what might be the most airtight case they've ever handled. The legal proceedings move forward with remarkable efficiency. By October 17, 2022, less than 3 months after Ashley's murder, Rayshawn Smith has been convicted of kidnapping and first-degree murder. That timeline is extraordinary for a major felony case. Most murder trials take a year or more to reach resolution. But here's where the legal process takes an even more serious turn. Smith's sentencing hearing is scheduled for December 19, 2022. Initially, he receives a 60-year sentence, which would have meant he'd spend the rest of his life behind bars given his age. However, during that same sentencing hearing, something significant happens. The charge gets upgraded from first-degree murder to natural life due to the use of a firearm in the commission of the crime. This enhancement means Smith will never be eligible for parole, never be eligible for early release, never see freedom again. Natural life in Illinois means exactly what it sounds like. you die in prison. There's no possibility of getting out, no matter how much time passes or how your behavior changes. It's the most severe punishment the state can impose short of the death penalty. In a move that surprises no one who's followed his case, Smith waives his right to be present at his own sentencing. He doesn't want to face Ashley's family, doesn't want to hear victim impact statements, doesn't want to be in the courtroom when the judge formally locks him away forever. So by December 19, 2022, justice has been served. Rayshawn Smith will spend the rest of his natural life in prison for what he did to Ashley Hardin. Case closed, sentence imposed, victim's family can begin the long process of healing. Except that's not where this story ends. On December 21st, 2022, 2 days after his sentencing, Smith is transferred from the Winnebago County Jail to the Illinois Department of Corrections. He's sent to the Northern Reception and Classification Center in Joliet, which is part of the Stateville Correctional Center. This is standard procedure for newly sentenced inmates. Then, 4 days later, something completely unexpected happens. December 25th, 2022. Christmas Day. Rayshawn Smith is found dead in his cell. The man who killed Ashley Hardin, who confessed to it on Facebook, who received a natural life sentence just 6 days earlier, is dead. An autopsy is performed by the Will County coroner, but the cause of Smith's death is not released to the public. Think about what this means. Smith served exactly 4 days of his life sentence. The man who was supposed to spend decades behind bars for his crimes dies within a week of his conviction. Whether it was suicide, medical emergency, or something else entirely, we may never know. While justice was served, Ashley's story was far from over. Her community had something beautiful planned, and when you see what they did, you'll understand why we keep investigating these cases here at Crime Vault Stories. Subscribe to see how light can emerge from darkness. Because sometimes the most important part of these stories isn't how the criminals meet their end, it's how the victims are remembered. In the weeks following these events, something remarkable happens that shows the true power of community compassion. The employees at Ecolab Inc., the very business behind which Ashley's body was discovered, refused to let that location be defined by violence. These are people who had never met Ashley, who knew nothing about her life or her family, but who were deeply affected by what had happened in their workplace parking area. Rather than trying to forget or distance themselves from the tragedy, the Ecolab employees make a collective decision. They want to transform this site from a place of sorrow into something meaningful, something that honors Ashley's memory rather than the circumstances of her death. They organize a fundraising effort with one goal: to create a permanent memorial that celebrates who Ashley was as a person. These aren't family members or close friends organizing this tribute. These are strangers who were moved by Ashley's story and determined to ensure she's remembered for the right reasons. The memorial they create is both simple and profound. A bright blue park bench installed on the Stone Bridge Trail near the Ecolab facility. But this isn't just any bench. It carries a message that captures exactly who Ashley was in life. The plaque attached to the bench bears an inscription that includes Ashley's own words: "In loving memory of a devoted mother, daughter, and friend, continue smiling, growing, loving, and showing respect." These aren't words chosen by committee or crafted by strangers. This is Ashley's own philosophy, her own approach to life, preserved forever. The blue color of the bench was chosen intentionally. Blue represents peace, tranquility, and hope, and everything Ashley embodied during her life and everything the community wants people to feel when they visit this memorial. But here's where the Ecolab employees' generosity becomes even more extraordinary. When the company learns about their workers' fundraising efforts, they step in and cover the full cost of the memorial bench. This allows every dollar that the employees had raised to be redirected towards something even more meaningful: birthday and Christmas gifts for Ashley's 3 children. Think about what that gesture represents. Not only did these employees create a lasting tribute to Ashley, but they ensured that her children would receive tangible reminders that their mother is remembered and loved by people who never even met her. Kyla, Ashley's best friend, continues to honor her memory in her own way. She describes Ashley as alive, lived, but never forgotten, capturing the idea that Ashley's impact on the world didn't end with her death. The relationships she built, the joy she brought to others, the love she gave to her children, all of that continues. A public dedication ceremony was planned for the memorial bench, giving Ashley's family and friends a place to gather, remember, and find peace. The Stone Bridge Trail becomes more than just a walking path. it becomes a destination for healing. This community response teaches us something vital about how we can honor victims of violence. Instead of letting these tragedies define locations or overshadow memories, communities have the power to reclaim those spaces and fill them with love. Ashley Hardin's legacy isn't what happened to her in those dark morning hours. Her legacy is the laughter she brought to her friends, the music she shared with her community, the love she gave to her children, and the kindness she showed to everyone she encountered. The bench on the Stone Bridge Trail stands as proof that evil doesn't get the final word. Love does. Community does. Memory does. And every person who sits on that bright blue bench, who reads Ashley's words about continuing to smile, grow, love, and show respect, becomes part of ensuring that her light continues to shine.